Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. We're going to go over all the crime that occurred in churches in the past week. We've got some gunplay issues and a lot of sexual assault stuff, which always comes up every week, and that bothers me a lot. We got arson. We've got just mayhem everywhere. We're going to break down what occurred. I am always going to talk to you about what you can do to prevent that from happening at your church. Whether you're Christian, Jewish, I'm glad you're here. I don't care who you are. Come learn how to keep your church safe. Yeah, we'll do the best we can. Now, look, some of you, real quick, I want to talk about this. Comes from my newsletter, ChristianWarriorTraining.com. You can go over to the site right here, and you can sign up, and you can get free training. That you just hit the training tab up here, and it'll take you to our training section where you can get a certificate of training and take that back to your church. We've got merch. Some of the merch you guys notice right now. I got my Trust God, Not Government shirt on. Got Acts 5:29 at the bottom. Don't trust man, trust God. If you want that shirt, you can hit that QR code down at the bottom. Just go ahead and hold that up. Or you can always go to ChristianWarriorTraining.com, click merch, and it'll take you to the store. I put a bunch of new stuff up there. I'm going to come up with new stuff all the time. I particularly like this church, especially what's going on right now in the world today. I think people need a reminder that we need to look at God and not government. I got a bunch of different stuff up there. Make America Believe Again, Jesus Christ in 24, stuff like that. So you can also just get my plain old Christian Warrior polo if you want to look good when you're out holding the line, doing church security. All right. Enough of that. Let's get into all crime that occurred in the past week. You can see here, if you just click up, I've got everything set up. Crimes against persons. I've got sex crimes, property crimes, you name it. Everything is there. Yeah, I suggest you head on over there and get the regular one that you can read. All right. First off, let's talk about this shooting but this incident that occurred in Grace New Covenant Church in Bellefontaine Neighbors, Missouri. Happened last Sunday. Now, a shooter entered through a rear door of the church and fired several shots at a man that was working security for the church. So the incident occurred during a service held by Brothers and Sisters in Christ Fellowship Church, which rents a space from Grace New Covenant Church. Now, fortunately, no one was physically injured. The shooter, who is believed to be an extended family member of the victim, fled the scene with his family. Police are actively investigating this. Now, look, I wrote a long-form article about this, outlining everything that occurred and things that I think you can do to protect yourself. Just real quick, one of the things that happens is this is a conflict between the security officer and a family member. It didn't really involve the church in that it did happen at the church. It was initially put out as an active shooter. It's not really an active shooter. It's two people, one guy that has a beef with another person. An active shooter means that 4 people have been shot, not including the shooter. That's technically what an active shooter is. I think it's really important for people that are in charge of church security teams to monitor their people, talk to them, make sure you're aware of all the things going on in their life, just because that's a good Christian thing to do. But also, if there's something that might come up, you want to be aware of. If something like this happens, you're just going to respond to it just like any other active shooter. You're just going to move forthwith to where the shooting is occurring and then stopping it. You're going to want to lock down your people, and then obviously have somebody call 911 right away. All right, but I did break that down a lot more over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. I suggest you head over there because we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We got an incident in Darien. Now, Our Lady of Peace Catholic Church in Darien, Illinois, requested police assistance to remove a 50-year-old man from their premises. Now, the man, a resident of Clarendon Hills, was causing a disturbance during a church service. Police responded, resolved the situation without incident. No charges were filed. The church resumed normal activity shortly after that. Now, look, you can see in this article here, I just pulled this one up. This is the most recent article I've seen. I did read somewhere that that there was a threat of violence against the church. just know that since October 7th, that there's been more incidents of people disrupting church services. Now, one of the things, like for our church, we were looking at how do we stop an incident at the church where somebody's in the pews and they're causing an argument, and they're not causing an argument, but just like causing problems in the church, and have stopped what we're doing. One of the things that we did, and I think it would work out really well for you, is we took 3 pews worth of people, so 3 rows of people. We put the agitator right in the middle, and we had them stand up and just start interrupting the service and causing problems. The best thing that we found to do was evacuate the first row and the second row. It's slow, and we told the agitator, you just keep agitating and don't stop, and ignore all the safety officers. Even though it was just an exercise, we pulled all those people out, and then we started evacuating the row that the guy was in. And now he's by himself. 3 empty rows in the middle of, like, we have capacity of over 1,000. And he's standing there by himself. And even though we told him to keep going, he stopped. And he stopped, he said, because I lost all my people. And he felt naked in front of everybody. It worked really well. And it also gave us an advantage that if we had to grab him to pull him out, we've got free reign to go grab him. I think it worked out really well. I'm trying to wait till we have a lot of people together so I can show this on video, because I want to show it to you guys, because I think it was super cool the way we did it, and I think we should replicate it somewhere else. But just to give you a heads up on how to do that. All right. Sorry, let me go back. All right, we're doing this live because I've run out of time to like make this all nice and edit everything out. So we're going live. One thing I forgot to tell you is if you go into the chat, I'm going to look at the chat at the end, and I'm going to try and answer all your questions. So if you have questions outside of what happens here, and you just have general questions about church security, go ahead and ask me. You've got me. I've taken at least an hour that I can go over everything that you got. So we're good. All right. So if you want, you can put in the chat the question that you have, and I'll answer it at the end when we talk about all this stuff. All right. So let's go back now. So a police officer was hit by a car as he was responding to a call at a Boston church. Now, 2 suspects were arrested. 3 firearms were seized after a Boston police officer was struck by a fleeing vehicle while responding to a report of an armed person outside of St. Matthew's Church. Now, the officer sustained non-life-threatening injuries, and the incident involved a group of 4 individuals, with 2 suspects still at large, and the investigation is ongoing. Now, look, I have injuries that are going to last a lifetime from going to calls exactly like this. Now, this is a good reminder for all of us to keep your head constantly moving while you're dealing with any kind of unfolding dynamic incident at your church like this. Now, in this case, you got 4 people with guns confronting each other in front of a church. Now, that's going to unfold quickly, and responding police and you are all going to try to deal with this situation. Now, my recommendation to you, it's best just to lock your doors, protect the people inside, let the aggressors fight it out with each other outside, and just keep people away from walls and move them into the most interior part of your church, or on like the opposite side of the church, anywhere that you have multiple walls between you and your people. Okay. Now, lastly, I want to talk about gang members and drug dealers going to church. They do. I was in charge of a gang unit. You can see my gang unit patch up in the shadow box up there. I was in charge of a gang unit. We would go out, and I remember passing the Catholic church, and I would see rival gang members going to church at the same time. They do go to church. I know they're sinning constantly, and we want them to come to church so that they stop their sinning and stop harming the community. But they're all going to go to church, and they're there at the same time. Now, the other thing is, if you're a rival gang member and you know that Joe Smith, you hate him and you want him to die, and you know he goes to church at 9 a.m. over at whatever church, you know where he's going to be at 9 a.m. on a Sunday. That may be the only time you can find him. So they're going to hit the church. So if you have gang members at your church, and I recommend, I have a class on identifying gang members and people that are armed and stuff like that. Go over to courses.christianwarriortraining.com. I've got the link scrolling down at the bottom. Just go down to christianwarriortraining.com, hit the training. There's a free class just on identifying these people. Keep an eye on them. let them know, like talk to them. You want to minister to them to try and get them to stop their ways. And then you also want to talk to them about threats, like, hey, we're worried about the church. What threats do we have to worry about here? What do we have to look for? And then your people on the perimeter can start looking for stuff like that. Okay. So next up, we're going to talk about a man that was accused of vandalizing a Kingston church, and he was found with some ammunition. Now, that's not such a big deal being found with ammunition, but let's talk about this for a minute. So a man from Plymouth, Massachusetts, was arrested for vandalizing the First Parish Church in Kingston. Police discovered ammo and writings on mass shootings in his car. That's not a good combo. The suspect, Jonathan White, faces multiple charges, including malicious destruction of property. Authorities are investigating the potential threat and motive behind the incident. Now, look, if I had a church in this area, if you're watching and you have a church in this area, I think it's super important for you to keep tabs on this man. Now, look, I did an article on the role of intelligence analysis in church security. I am a fan of having an intelligence officer assigned to your safety ministry. Okay. Now, you need an intelligence officer because people like this are roaming the earth. If he's got writings about mass shootings and is vandalizing a church, then you have to assume he's thinking about doing an active shooter event. Now, you want to get his photo. Okay, let me go back here. Let me find it for you. There you go. You want to get his photo and you want to pass it around to everybody on the safety ministry, as well as all of the volunteers and all of the employees. You want to post it up, and not post it up in public, right? But post it in a place that all your volunteers and your employees go to so that everybody can see it, and then leave it up forever. So everybody sees it. The minute he shows up, you know what he looks like, and you can act on it. If you are in this church that was the victim of this, 100% you need to get a restraining order against him, all right? Because you don't want him coming to your church. Now, I recommend that you read my article on the role of role of intelligence analysts in safety ministries. It will tell you how to set up this position within your safety ministry. It'll tell you how to set it all up, what they should do. Now, the big question is, where do I get this? You're going to have to do your own training on open source intelligence. It could be simply as following your problem children's social media. Is an example. In my area that I'm at, the Satanic Church has in the past picketed churches during service while they're armed with rifles out front, wearing demonic costumes. I keep track of them. I keep track of what they're saying. I keep track of what they're doing. So that way, if they're going to hit my church, I could be aware of it. And I recommend you do the same thing. Look at it's called an area study. I did another article on area studies and how to look at your area and look at the threats that could come up to your church and possibly be a problem for you at your church somewhere down the road. All right. Next up, a St. Charles man threatened a church over denied performance. Sorry, this article got blocked out. I apologize. I'm not paying for it, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. Now, a St. Charles man was charged with making terroristic threats after allegedly threatening to shoot up a local church that refused to let him perform music. Now, the incident occurred at St. Joseph Catholic Church, where the suspect expressed anger at being denied a chance to play. Now, police intervened after being alerted to the threat, and the man was taken into custody without incident. The church has since increased security measures to ensure the safety of his congregation. Now, if someone says that they're going to shoot up your church, you absolutely 100% need to take the threat seriously. Now, people are often going to find ways to dismiss this behavior, like saying he really wouldn't do something like that. They absolutely would. After the arrest, you're going to need to get a restraining order against that man so that he can't come to your church anymore. Now, you can try and rehome him to a new church, but if you were going to do that, I would have some kind of a memorandum of understanding with him, much like we do with our sexual predators that want to come to church. You can go back. I got another article on that, on what happens when a sex registrant wants to come to your church. You're not going to say no. Okay. We would, what would Jesus do? We'd minister to them. Okay. Because we want them to stop what they're doing. What you do is you do a memorandum of understanding saying, if you come, you have to come with somebody to watch you, to make sure you behave and you don't act dumb, and you can come worship Christ. You can do everything that you need to do, but the church is safe, right? You just got to find a church that would be willing to do that. Now, our church would, but we'd also have somebody on the entire time. All right. So the next part that I'm going to get into is going to make YouTube and all the other channels demonetize this. And they're probably going to, I hope they don't age restrict it. So let me tell you right now, we're going to get into all the sex crimes that occurred, and there are a lot, and it's sad. And I'm going to talk about how you can prevent sex crime from occurring at your church, because to me, it's easy and common sense, right? I think it's pretty easy and common sense for you to stop something like that, but we're gonna break down the nitty gritty of it. Now, look, if you want to support what I'm doing, the best way that you can support what I'm doing is to do a subscription over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. By doing that subscription, if you're able to, I definitely only do it if you're able to. Give to your church, give to the homeless, give to everybody else before you even do this. But if you're able to, doing a paid subscription makes it so that I can concentrate more on this. I can't concentrate on money coming from YouTube or any other social media outlets because I'm Christian, I'm conservative, and they don't like us. So just my 2 cents. All right. So let's get into all this stuff. I hate this part. I really do, man. I'll say I'm going to get rid of that for you. All right. This part makes me very, very sad. Let me pull this back up here. This is a felon turned pastor that was charged with sexual battery of a teen girl. Now, Felipe Martinez is a former felon who became a pastor. He's been charged with sexual battery involving a teenage girl. Now, Martinez is known for his work at a Texas church. He faces serious allegations that have shocked that community. Now, authorities are conducting an ongoing investigation to determine the extent of the alleged misconduct. Martinez had a previous criminal record before turning to pastoral work. Okay, I'm jaded. And how do I put this, man? Look, I'm jaded because I've been dealing with felons my whole life. In my newsletter, one of the things that I put in there, I often put in like what I think you should do, I put something in there that basically, like, if you have an ex-felon that wants to become a pastor, you really have to look at that person to determine if they're a fit for your church and how that's going to work. Now, it's hard for me because when you look at Saul and you look at the things that he did and then look at what he became down the road, it's hard, man. I know I'm jaded. Hear me out. No matter what you have to do a background check. And I've done a wonderful article on, if I don't say so myself, I've done a wonderful article on how to do background checks. If you are like somebody like a pastor, so many churches don't background check their pastor. And they don't because they're like, well, it's the pastor. He's going to be fine. Predators will become a pastor solely for the purpose of having access to children or to vulnerable women, right? Or vulnerable men. And they're in that position because not because they want to worship the Lord. They are there for evil purposes, right? So you're going to have to do a background check. It's going to come up they had a felony. What was the felony? I don't even know what the felony was for this guy. If it was kind of a sex offense and you decide to bring him on, then you're going to have to come up with something that makes sure that he is not alone with children, not alone with vulnerable females, and so on. So you're going to figure out how that's going to work. Okay. If it's violence, there's a lot. I know lots of guys that were violent and then turn around. I had a pastor that was a drug dealer. I'm a former narc. I worked undercover narcotics, and he was the best pastor I ever had. I told my daughter, when you get married, he needs to be the pastor to marry you because he's such a cool dude. He totally turned his life around, and you would see that. You would see in the background that he's got a felony, but then talking to him, you would find out that he has totally turned his life over to Christ. So you're going to have to dig in deep. Now, here's the other problem with all of this. If you have one victim, you have 20. It's never just one person. So your church is most churches bury it and they don't report it. You cannot do that. Read the Bible. It clearly says what you're supposed to do. Okay. Call the police. You totally help them out. but you do your own investigation, and you do your own investigation to find out what policies you need to implement, what went wrong, and also what other victims there are, and most importantly, what services you're going to give the victims of these crimes, because we have an obligation to take care of them. So you got to, and you also want to approach other people. They're not going to want to come out and say, I'm a victim of sexual abuse. They're not going to want to say that. So you have to go root out and find out who the victims are so we can help them, right? We have so many people that refuse to come to church because they or somebody they love were a victim of sexual assault by somebody in the church. We can't have that. Okay. That just honestly just kills me. Now, here we got a longtime New Jersey pastor that was charged with repeated sexual assaults. Now, Reverend Stephen Sweet, he's the pastor of Grace Evangelical Lutheran Church in River Edge, New Jersey. He's been charged with 21 crimes, including 18 sex offenses involving a teenager. Now, the alleged assaults occurred over several years in River Edge, Paramus, and Ridgewood. Sweet, who was ordained in 1997, is accused of multiple counts of aggravated sexual assault, endangering the welfare of a child, and criminal sexual contact. He was arrested and is currently held at Bergen County Jail. He's awaiting a court hearing. I wrote an article, let me pull it up here, on safeguarding against sexual abuse in churches. Now, I talk extensively in this article about why these people come to churches, why they show up, why they target, because I'll tell you right now, it's our forgiving nature. And it's also because we trust everybody. And that includes not doing background checks when you should. So please don't forget to do your background checks. Okay. And so it's easy for them to get in there. It's easier for them to get in there than Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, schools, anything like that. Go to a church. They're not going to background you. If they find out that you were sexually assaulting somebody, then a lot of churches bury it, hide it. Look at the Catholic Church is a good example. Okay. They'll bury it, hide it, do whatever. And then a lot of the people that were abused have a forgiving nature. And this reminds me of my pastor. Love my pastor, Steve, if you're watching, and Jason. I love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you. I've learned so much from you. But one of the things he talks about is it's okay to forgive, but that doesn't save you from the consequences that are coming. Okay. So just my 2 cents. I think that was a really good sermon that they had. Just something to think about. All right. This one. Whew, all right. Whoops. Let me bring this back over here. Sorry, I'm working off 3 screens here. All right. Now this one, a man was cited for public indecency at an Ohio church. Now, a man was cited for public indecency in the parking lot of St. Peter's Church in Chillicothe, Ohio. Witnesses report seeing the man defecating and wiping himself on Wednesday morning. Now, authorities identified the suspect as Keith Snyder, who matched the description provided. Snyder denied the act, but was issued a summons for public indecency and released with a court date on July 22nd. Now, this happens frequently when you have the homeless population in your church. Churches are really good at ministering to the homeless. And one of the things that I've dealt extensively, I was a cop in California, so you can imagine how much homeless I had to deal with. I have witnessed this before, people defecating in front of a church, a restaurant, you name it. This happens frequently. So my recommendation to you is if you're ministering to the homeless and providing services, know that you're at increase of crime at your church. So you're going to want to keep an eye on people a little bit more. You can see these things coming. Like as an example, you would see this man in front of the church and start to drop trout, and you can stop them immediately, say, hey, stop, come to the bathroom in here. And drug users and homeless people don't think like rational people. Me and you know not to do certain things. Mental illness and drug use, you will do things that are not socially acceptable because you're just not thinking properly. And you will see these warning signs if you pay attention and you can intercede before the crime occurs. I don't think we should let the crime occur, right? We should stop it before it happens. All right. So we're going to move on. That one wasn't so much a sexual assault as it was, whoops, let me hide that. All right. All right. So next up, we got an ex-school district janitor charged with molestation during church trips. Now, a former school district janitor in the South Bay. This is the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. This is the South Bay. He's been charged with molesting teenagers during church trips. The suspect allegedly committed the crimes at his residence, targeting teenagers involved in the church activities. Authorities are investigating the extent of the allegations and urge any additional victims to come forward. He faces multiple charges. All right. Now, sexual predators are going to target churches to find new victims. Now, churches are targeted because of our forgiving nature, right? And also churches tend to bury and not report sexual assaults, and our lack of background checks and monitoring of adult interactions with children. We are not doing a good job, period. So seriously, do good background checks, have a good policy in place that protects our children. Lastly, where there are 1 or 2 victims, there's going to be 10 more. So be transparent with the police and your congregation and start your own investigation. The other thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get, let me get past this here. You're going to need to get a public information officer whose job is to talk to the press. When the press comes knocking, they are for something like this, it is not acceptable for you to say no comment. You're going to have to feed the beast. You're going to have to say something. Okay. So get a PIO, come up with a state. You don't have to give away that we did anything wrong or anything like that. Just say, we're heartbroken that this occurred. We're being transparent. We're working with the police and we're helping the victim. Thank you very much. Have a good day. You're done. If you don't leave a statement like that, then people that hate the church are going to be the one talking. And they're going to say things that are bad. They're going to hurt your church and Christianity as a whole. And that leaves us hanging. If you want to know what you should do as far as having a public information officer in your church, I got an article on that. Gone over to Christian Warrior Training. Go look up PIO, press, information officer, whatever, go into the search bar. You'll find it. I literally have written about everything and it'll be up there for you. So I hope that helps you, but don't just say nothing. Okay. And also I did do that article on everything you need to know about background checks. It tells you this is in depth. It's almost a manual and you can read that. It'll tell you everything you need to know. All right. Next up, Long Island church leader was charged with sexual misconduct. Now, a church leader from Hempstead, Long Island, has been charged with multiple counts of sexual misconduct involving a minor. The alleged incidents began when the victim was 12 years old. Authorities are urging anyone with additional information to assist the ongoing investigation. Now, I'm not going to keep repeating what I think you should do. I'm just going to talk about this real quick. If you got 1, you have 10. You've got to dig deep and find out who else is a victim, okay? Next up, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is looking into an allegation of sexual abuse connected to Broadmoor Baptist Church in Madison, Mississippi. This follows an earlier investigation into past abuse allegations at this church. Enough said. This is the last of the sexual assaults that we're going to talk about. This by far is the leading crime that I see each week. It makes me sad. I hate it. We need to get our stuff together. All right. We can't have this anymore. All right. This one's sad. Golf carts catch fire in an Alabama church during service. Now, on July 14th, during the 11 a.m. service at First Baptist Church in Montgomery in Alabama, a fire broke out involving the church's golf carts. Now, the fire was quickly contained by the Montgomery firefighters. No injuries were reported. The incident occurred while the church was celebrating the 20th anniversary of its main sanctuary, which had been restored after an arson attack in 2021. Now, was this an arson? I don't know. I haven't been able to find any information on it, but I am going to say this. A lot of arsonists will not a lot, but occasionally arsonists will target a church for a specific reason, and then they will hit anniversaries and hit the same church on an anniversary because that's important to them. I would definitely be looking into this as if it was some purposeful act. Now, my recommendation to you to keep arsons from happening in your church. A lot of churches don't have fire alarms and don't have burglar alarms. I don't get it. You've got to have I think your first security item that you purchase, 4K cameras, fire alarm, burglar alarm. If you can't afford it, I get it. But if you can, there are churches that have a lot of money that still don't have this stuff. I don't understand it. The burglar alarm, they're going to come inside to break in and light the place on fire. The minute they break in, the alarm goes off. Most of the time, it scares them. If they decide to stay, the police now have a head start. The fire alarm. You got to have a fire alarm so that way the fire department can get it right away and then put that fire out right away at the same time. The 4K video system. Look, man, I worked in a bigger city, right? My city I worked in was over 100,000 people, but we still knew all the dirtbags. When we see the video, we're like, oh, that's Joe, the transient guy living down on First Street. And then we can go over and go pick him up, right? If not, we can put it out to the public and say, do you know this guy? He just burned down a church. Who's not going to turn him in? His own mom's going to turn him in. You burned down a church. I don't want to go to hell for not reporting you, right? So we know something's going to happen there, all right? Next up, pastor was arrested for felony theft from a Leesville church. Now, let me play that little video for you, maybe give you a little something there to look at while I talk. Now, Jack Osteen III, a former pastor of First Assembly of God Church in Leesville, Louisiana, was arrested in Florida for allegedly stealing funds from the church. Now, the Louisiana State Police's Bureau of Investigations in Alexandria initiated the investigation, which led to Osteen's arrest by the Polk County Sheriff's Office on July 12th. He's accused of theft amounting to less than $25,000. Are going to help you prevent most crime at your churches. Now, in this case, I've got an article on protecting church funds. Go over to Christian Warrior Training, go in the search bar and just look up. I think that one was like protecting your offerings, your church offerings. And it talks about systems that you should put in place to protect the offerings that you get from your congregation. It's everything from having two people count the money to auditing and double checking everybody. And that's the best way you can do that. So I know you should be able to trust your pastor, and you should always trust, but you verify. Okay. So everyone is tempted by the devil. Nobody's immune from what he's trying to do on this earth. Now, this one's kind of interesting. I've been following this for quite a while. There was a phony priest that was linked to a nationwide church theft that was busted in New York City. Now, Malin Rostis is a 45-year-old con man. He was arrested for posing as a priest to steal $900 from American Martyrs RC Church in Queens, New York. Now, Rostis is known for his nationwide church thefts. He used the same method to steal thousands of dollars across multiple states. He was previously arrested in California for a similar crime and extradited to New York to face additional charges. Now, again, I need to reiterate the need for background checks that go beyond just a computer check, not a Google search. You need to check references and then dig deeper into those references. If it's your pastor, you need to trust, but you need to verify. Okay. All right. Next up, a church in Herndon was broken into twice. Now, Herndon police are investigating two break-ins at a local church within a short span. The incidents occurred at an unnamed church in Herndon, Virginia, where nothing of significant value was reported stolen. Authorities have released photos of the suspects and are seeking the public assistance and identify them. The police urge anyone with information to come forward to help resolve this case. Now, each week, I remind you that your church needs a 4K video system and a burglar/fire alarm. This is your weekly reminder. Actually, the second time I said it in this newscast. All right. It's funny. I don't want to say funny tile, weird tile. A relic was stolen from Cathedral of Magdalene in Salt Lake City. A relic of Saint Mary Magdalene was stolen from the Cathedral of the Magdalene in Salt Lake City, Utah on the morning of July 10th. The theft was discovered around 7 a.m. by cathedral staff who found the broken reliquary on the floor. Now, the Diocese of Salt Lake City is working with local police to recover the relic and has offered a $1,000 reward for information leading to its return. Again, 4K video system, burglar alarm, fire alarm. This would have alerted police that somebody, I cannot tell you, I would have burglar alarms. I'd roll up and there are people burglarizing the place and I'd catch them. It's wonderful. It's a great invention that everybody should take advantage of. This is the funny little title that I was thinking of. Was this one? The Alabama church employee embezzles $300,000 for TikTok gifts. I don't look at TikTok. I am not on TikTok because I'm not going to support the Chinese. But yeah, I don't get it. Stay off of TikTok, man. Now, a former administrative assistant at St. Francis of Assisi University Parish in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, has pleaded guilty to wire fraud for stealing $300,000 from the church. She used the church's MasterCard to purchase TikTok coins and cover personal expenses, making over 429 transactions. Now, she admitted to stealing at least $70,000 per month between June and August 2023. She's agreed to pay nearly $300,000 in restitution. She ain't going to pay $300,000 in restitution. She's going to be in jail. And then when she does get out, the church is not going to get $300,000 from her. All right. So look, background check and then constantly monitor. If you gave her a credit card, then you should be auditing them. Like every time they make a purchase, then a receipt should be turned in with that purchase so you see it immediately and you know what's going on. Just don't give somebody a credit card and let them run with it. You know, I didn't even know that was a thing on TikTok. I didn't even know you can just go on there and buy. I guess it's like anywhere else, but way to support the Chinese government, not to go off on a tangent. But all right, we're going to go to international stories. Now, just a minute for international stories. I was shocked at the sheer number of international people watching what we do on this channel and also at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. A majority of my out of area people are from India. And I just talked to a Catholic Indian the other day he was working here and just hearing the abuse that they put up with. Also, tons of people from Nigeria and other African countries. Thank you for coming to the channel. I hope I can help you. But in the international stories, there is stuff happening in Russia that America needs to keep their eyes on because I think it's going to happen here. All right, so let's get into it now. A teen was detained for an alleged church attack plot. Now, an 18-year-old was detained by Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, for allegedly planning a terrorist attack on an Orthodox church in Makop, Adygea. I'm not even saying that right. Anyways, the suspect is Central Asian national. We'll talk more about that Central Asian nationality in a minute. Reportedly conducted reconnaissance and assembled incendiary devices with the intent to attack the church and harm its clergy and its guards. The FSB found materials related to a terrorist organization, which is going to be I can't say it without losing my channel. Like if I say their name, then I get I don't get a strike or anything, but they demonetize me and it's horrible. It's the organization that we have been fighting that for quite a long time. You can figure it out. All right. You could always head over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com where I put it all up there too. Now these events are unfolding around the world rapidly. Now, most suspects are Tajik. They're from Tajikistan. Currently, there are hundreds of Tajiks in the United States that crossed the border illegally and were set free by ICE. Now, the attacks that you see in Russia and other countries, we should be studying those because that's going to be the same type of attack that you're going to see here in the United States. Now, I just got done recording an episode over at Survival Dispatch News. Many of you know that I go do stuff over there. Today, I was hosting an SDN newscast, and I talked about all the Tajiks that are in the United States. We're in a lot of trouble, and they have been told to attack churches. You need to watch and a lot of people are like, oh, who cares what happens in Russia, or it's a lie or whatever, man, whatever. Watch the attacks that people are putting out on social media. Watch how they coordinate it. Watch what they do. And then you need to think to yourself, this is what they're going to do at my church. And then you need to prepare your church for that. Don't turn your church into a bunker, okay? Keep your church open. Just keep your head on a swivel and look for things like people coming in and doing reconnaissance and drawing and taking photos and stuff like that, okay? All right, so a man was shot dead before Mass inside of a church in Colombia. Now, on July 15th, a man was fatally shot inside St. John Paul II Church in Cali, Colombia, just before a scheduled mass. The assailant was a woman, fired multiple shots, also injuring another congregant. The victim, Erasmo Trujillo, was a regular churchgoer. Now, authorities believe the motive may be related to Trujillo's alleged past involvement with a drug trafficking gang. The incident has shocked the local community, prompting calls for increased security and respect for the sanctity of religious spaces. Now, look, again, we're going to go back to this. Drug dealers and gang members go to church all the time. You've got to identify those people, talk to them, minister to them, try to get them to get away from their ways, let them know they're sinning, let them know that that is not not how you conduct business. And then you want to find out what they're worried about. And then you need to start being on the lookout for that. Your intelligence officer, remember, we talked about the need for an intelligence officer in your church, should be interviewing them, and then we're doing full workups and then giving that to your safety team so that everybody's fully briefed and knows what's going on. All right. Parisian Catholic Church vandalized with Islamic threats. Now, Notre Dame du Travail in Paris was vandalized with explicit Islamist graffiti and acts of violence on July 14th. The desecration included threats, smashed property, and a statue of the Virgin Mary stabbed in the throat. Parishioners discovered the damage the next day. The church, located in a working-class district, has experienced similar incidents previously. The parish is seeking funds for a surveillance system to prevent future attacks. So are you seeing a trend yet? Okay, Islamicists were told by ISIS, I said the word, dang it. Now I'm going to get some kind of bad thing from YouTube on that. They were told by them to attack us and the Jews. So we aren't, as a whole, taking this threat seriously. So you want to look at what's happening to churches around the world. The Bible says that we will be persecuted for our beliefs. And like one of my friends said, I read the book and I know how it ends. All right. They've told us that they're coming after us. And there are a whole bunch of dangerous people that invaded our country that want to hurt us. It's coming. And you have to ask yourself, what are you doing to protect your church? Right? Okay. We got a whole bunch. Oh, man, you got tons of stuff. I didn't realize there were so many people on here. I'm so busy talking, I didn't look. All right. So let me look at what we got that. Let me see if we got any good questions. Lots of hellos. All right, here we go. I love this. I could show comments. I don't trust the government at all. I trust Jesus and God. Yo, Ian, me too, man. I agree with you. All right. Let me see. Love the polo, but not Natal. Yeah, sorry about that. All right. Oh, somebody gave me a super thing. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So let me just show you real quick. So we've got a comment that says sex offenders should be rejected. Okay. All right. I want to say that too, because I haven't met a sex offender yet that has rehabilitated. You know what? When I stand right here, it looks like I got antenna coming out of the back of my head. I should lean back a little bit. All right. So I feel the same way. All right. I feel like they should be rejected too. I haven't met a sex offender yet that is actually, they've repented, right? They've repented and they believe that Jesus died for their sins, but then they continue to go back and reoffend and re-sin. And that's not what you're supposed to do. However, what would Jesus do? Right? I think that we can get them into the church, and we have a couple sex offenders in my church. And trust me, never in my life did I think I would be defending them. I think the best way to do it is a memorandum of understanding that says, this is what you're going to do, and I want you to sign it. They don't want any problems. They will do whatever you want. In this case, they both have monitors. They bring the monitor with them, but they go to the bathroom, the monitor gets up and watches them pee, and then they come back. Nothing's going to happen at the church. And they're not allowed to talk to children, be by children, any of that kind of stuff. I think that works out real well. And we're doing what we're supposed to do, right? Same thing with gang members and drug dealers. Look, man, I worked undercover narcotics. I worked gangs. I was in charge of both, right? I despise those people, okay? But with that said, if they want to come to church, I want them to come to church. I want them to hear the word of God, and I want them to repent for their sins. And I want them to worship the way they're supposed to. And I've had people turn away from their evil ways. And that's what we want. The best way to do that is a memorandum of understanding. So, just my 2 cents. When are you back on SDN? All right. So SDN is Survival Dispatch News. I have not been on there a lot lately because I've been teaching a ton of law enforcement classes. I'm done for the year. And I am not going to pick up any more law enforcement class. There's 2 classes I'm going to stick with. But because you guys are kind enough to do to pay for the bulletin, it allows me to not do law enforcement classes and concentrate on this. And it makes me so I can do Survival Dispatch News as well. I'll be on there again. Yeah, so that's interesting too. I agree. China just changed the Bible leaning to their worldview. I saw that translation that they just put out about the Bible. It was all bad. All right, so the GWAT, I love that. The GWAT 456. All right, so Boston Marathon bombers were also Tajikistan, if I remember correctly. I think you were right. I think they were Tajik as well. China is heavily involved in Tajikistan right now, and right now they're heavily controlled by the I already mentioned them, ISIS. If I'm going to say it once, I'm just going to keep getting hammered by YouTube. Tajikistan, China is really into Tajikistan right now because Russia is neglecting them, and so China sees an opportunity. ISIS is heavily into Tajikistan, and they have created a lot of warriors there, and a lot of them come into the United States. I fully expect that when a church gets hit, there is going to be an active shooter at a church. It's coming. I've been warning you guys. You can see down at the bottom, I haven't taken it out on my rolling tape. Our church security threat level is orange, high risk. The next level up is imminent. I know it's coming. I'm trying to relay that to you guys the best I can. But I know in the next year, I'm going to come on here under this channel to say, I told you. Now let's review what happened with this shooting, right? So what are you doing to prepare? Let's see. Let's see. Let me see if I can understand this right. All right. So I'm trying to get my church to recognize it's no longer 1990. All the doors are, I got you. All the doors are open. They will not close them. They can't even get all these scary people having meeting thoughts. All right. So look, a lot of churches have a pacifist view. And I've written about this too. If you go over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com, if you have a question, I've probably answered it over there. But a lot of churches have this pacifist view where they're like, God will protect us. But those same people look both ways at a red light to make sure they don't get hit by a car. Now, look, I know that God will take care of me. I pray to God multiple times a day. He has shown me in my career as a cop that he will protect me from evil. But he also gave me a bunch of tools to protect myself. Like those guns up there, if they could only tell a story. Those are all first issue handguns for every generation of cop in my house or in my family. We have 4 generations of cops in my family. Those are all their first issue handguns. Could you imagine what those stories could tell? God gave me those tools to protect the public and to protect myself. I'm going to do that. So how do you convince your church to do that? You can convince them by forwarding these newsletters from Christian Warrior Training and forward it to them and show them the crime that's occurring at churches. A lot of churches are turning around, and it doesn't mean how you do is you tell them, we're going to set up a safety ministry. The safety ministry includes medical and security. So you start off with safety with just like the medical people. And then from the medical people, then you go over to, then you go into security. And you set up training, you do everything for them, right? And set up that way. But let them know also let them know I'm most likely to give a Band-Aid than to pull my gun. Now, the chances of an active shooter happening at your church is minimal, but it's not zero. And as long as it's not zero, you have a responsibility to protect your people. Yeah, I like this too. Sheila, God's word states clearly who is qualified for being a pastor. If the church goes against the word, then the church is being disobedient. Man, I agree. There are a lot of churches making their own rules right now. And side note, I don't even put it in the newsletter anymore, but there's a bunch of churches that put out LGBTQ flags and they're getting burned, torn down. Their churches are getting vandalized. Look, man, they're becoming victims of crime constantly. And I kind of put out a thing to them that basically said, if you do this, number one, you're going against the word of God, but you're also going to become a victim of crime. So you might want to rethink it. There are the Presbyterian church. I grew up Presbyterian. Now evangelical. I go to a non-denominational church. I love you guys if you're watching. You got the Presbyterian USA and then Methodist as well. And that one shocked me because it's so big in the South. Let me just show this real quick. So Patrick says, I've recently convinced my church to start locking the doors we're not using, and someone is sitting by the only entrance during service. The downside is it's made a lot of old timers angry. One even left. If they're leaving, yeah, all right. If they're leaving because of a door, then all right. So what, man? See you later. See you later, man. It's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. But look, you've got to close all those doors that are open. I mean, you have to. You can't leave them open. All right. So shut all the doors that aren't being used. Funnel people through one way. That way, if something happens, you can get your people in and shut the door. But attackers only have one entrance, and then it makes it easier for you to stop them. My church, we have multiple entrances. I mean, multiple entrances. And we just finally got them to reduce it to 3. And we have 3 security personnel. We have a security person at each door. But we finally got them to secure those doors that were unmanned. It absolutely has to be done. Here we go. Patrick, on a side note, this is the 3rd time I've had to subscribe to your channel for some reason. I keep getting unsubscribed. I have been hearing that a lot. I got unsubscribed on my own channel. I subscribed to my own channel and got unsubscribed. Now, look, I'm trying to hit 100,000. At 100,000, I get benefits from YouTube that I get an actual person that I can call instead of like having to go through AI, right? So if you can pass this to all your friends, I am 8,000 people short. I'm at like 92 or 93,000 followers right now. I would totally appreciate if you did a shout out to all your homies and let them know. Yeah, the Lutheran churches are starting to do the rainbow flags as well. That's unfortunate. It is going against the Bible, against the teaching of the Bible. There are a lot of churches that are ignoring what's going on. So this is an interesting one. All right, this is pretty common. Sean, our church hires a sheriff officer to stay in the entrance. Man, that may or may not be the best thing. I was a cop for 30 years. I trained cops. Okay. But I've been seeing a lot of students come through lately, and I can look at them right away and say you were hired after 2020. I call them COVID cops. Anybody hired after 2020. Make sure that you don't call the sheriff's department. They just give you somebody as a paid job. If they're going to send somebody to you, you should interview and find out the best person for that job and make sure that you get the best person, the best deputy that shows up. Okay. Because it might be a guy, like a good example is the church in Houston, Texas, Joel Osteen's church. The shooter, when he came in, the officer I don't have my phone, but I got a camera. He's on his phone like this. And the shooter walks in with a gun under his trench coat, whatever it was. It was a training. I don't know which way it went there. And they didn't even see it. And then he didn't act either. Now, look, I will die blue, but they are screwing up unbelievably bad. My recommendation to you is that if the local police department or sheriff's department is going to give you somebody, then you tell them, I want to interview give me options and I will interview them. And then you pick that person. Otherwise, you might be like, I can tell you right now, on my church security team, it is an ex-LA County gang sergeant. You got me. I'm a former SWAT team sergeant. We got a SEAL team guy, a former SEAL Team 1 guy. We've got I think we got a special forces guy in there. We've got a martial arts instructor. I mean, we got some really good people, man, that are going to be much better than what the local PD can send down. All right, so I'm just looking through, looking for those things. All right, I think we got everything. All right, so I got everything I needed. All right, do me a favor. Let me get rid of this real quick. Hold on. Stand by. Do me a favor. Pick up the Trust God, Not Government shirt. I made it just for you. I'm looking at the comments. It sounds like we have a lot in common. It's a good shirt, I think, personally. Head on over to christianwarriortraining.com. I have free training. Go hit the training tab, start taking those classes, watch them with the team, discuss it, talk about it. You can go to merch and get all the merchandise that's there. All of those funds help me earn a living and not have to go teach law enforcement, because I'm kind of tired of that. That time's done. I love this community at Christian Warrior Training. You guys are fabulous. You are my favorite people ever. All right, that's all I got for now. The most important thing you can do to protect your church is remember your ABCs. Always be caring. I got to figure out how to shut this thing off. Look, I had a great exit. Now I don't know how to shut off my my live stream. Oh, there it is. End stream. Look at that.